Well, that did not go as planned. Ah! 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 Hello, and welcome to a very painful Canucks season retrospective. So this year, what exactly happened this year? Well, I guess the best place to start is from the very top. We obviously came into this year with a lot of expectation, and those expectations were not met. And this really starts going back to last season. At the end of 21-22, the same thing that happened, what feels like every year for the last decade, happened yet again. We ended up getting hot. Very, very hot for the latter half of the season. Deceptively hot, some might say. Obviously, Bruce, there it is, had quite the impact on that. And that may have led to a little bit of, as we learned throughout the course of the year, an overestimation of exactly how good our lovely little hockey team actually is. Enter the off season. Now, this past off season, personally, myself, I really thought, looking at the way last season went, okay, we have fabulous offense. So much goddamn offense. And this has been the case now for, I want to say, like 3 or 4 years. Okay, we have Petey, we have Besser, we have Miller, who is coming off a 99-point campaign. We have Bo Horvat, you know. We have a lot of scoring. We have a fabulous goaltender. Thatcher Demko, arguably, when you adjust for advanced statistics and all the fun stuff, one of the best goaltenders in the league who pretty much made the team look a lot better than it actually did a lot of points last season. So, all of these factors taken into account, what does that leave? What did that leave us with? What is our one glaring goddamn issue? Defense. We have defense. And so, in the offseason, what does Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford and company, what do they decide to add? You might think the answer would be exceptionally obvious, but hold your horses. You think they would probably add a defenseman? Well, guess what? They didn't. We went ahead, and obviously the big marquee signing for the 2022 offseason was Ilya Mikheyev. Now, Mikheyev, not a problem with him as a player. Honestly, I thought when he was healthy this year, one of our better wingers. That being said, when you have such a plethora of talent in one position and depth, and you have such a glaring issue in another position, that not only has it been an issue for one season, I would argue it has been the main problem with the construction of this roster probably since Sedin's left. You know, briefly in 2022, we had a little bit of something there. It was nice. We had Edler, we had Tanev, we had Stetcher, we had Huggy, you know. We were actually playing some okay defense, and maybe that's why we won 3 playoff rounds, or 2, or whatever the hell it was. We almost won that. Yeah, that's right. We got knocked out by Vegas. Shut up. Not thinking about that. Okay. I guess the very roundabout point that I'm trying to reach is, what sort of fucking crazy pills do you have to be taking to then invest all your delicious, valuable, ever so slim little bit of cap space and immediately put it right back into an area where you already have strength? Now, it might have been like, hey, let's just see if we can pull an Edmonton Oilers and invest so much that we actually outscore our problems. But that doesn't fucking work. As has been shown in the playoffs time and time again, you have to have decent defensive structure, a good goaltender, and offensive depth, usually, specifically in the middle, which we have. So. Obviously, going into the season, I had reasons for concern, but there were also reasons for optimism. And then the season started, and virtually every single thing that could have gone wrong, save for one little delightful Russian man that loves bananas, absolutely, emphatically went so horribly wrong that we had one of the greatest tire fire, dumpster fire, fucking, you know what? No, it was an entire goddamn landfill worth of flame coming out of our lovely little Canuck dumpster this year, from bad PR things galore to just bad play on the ice, galore. And I think that's attributable to a few different reasons. Of course, Thatcher Demko getting hurt was the number one reason why this season, in my humble little, probably completely incoherent opinion, the reason we completely fell off the wagon there. He covers for so much of our defensive friggin' whatever you call it, tomfoolery, that when you remove him from the equation, or at least for the first half of the year when he's playing very poorly, what does that do? It shows you what an actual silly woolly little group of silly sausages that we have on the ice sometimes. As well, I love Bruce Boudreau. I think he's a wonderful man. I think what the organization did to him is absolutely awful. But with all that being said, I do agree with the assessment that he was not the greatest coach structurally, which I think we can now see after Tocchet is coming. And actually, that's going to lead into our next point. So we've covered the offseason, we covered the first half of the season, silly mistakes galore, bad stuff happening left and goddamn right. But then what happens the second half of the season? We started doing things right, which is, again, the most mixed bag of Canuck wonder. Because when we do things right, it leads to optimism. But then whatever happens, no matter how optimistic we get, no matter how many logical decisions management seems to be making, we still find ways to completely blow things. It's just truly incredible. But there are reasons for optimism, and I'm going to go over a few. Numero uno. Thatcher Demko's healthy again. I don't think I need to really elaborate more on that. He's one of the best goalies in the league, as we've already touched on. Numero dos. We are finally actually remedying the defensive issues. Now, the Bo Horvat trade, some people weren't the hottest on, other people were very hot on. I think it was a very good deal. Why do you say that? I love Bo, but I do think, as we've seen as the season has progressed, his offensive production, despite how good he was this year, the fact that we got Kuzmenko, that essentially made Bo offensively expendable, at least in terms of his offensive production. Because initially, that your trinity of offensive players forward-wise was going to be, it was going to be Petey, it was going to be Miller, it was going to be Bo. But you bring in Kuzmenko, you bring in the fact that, at least in terms of career averages, and you kind of look at things and you think, okay, this Kuzmenko guy is going to probably score close to 40 goals and around 70 points this year. Horvat, love the guy. He's never, ever in his career reached that kind of scoring pace. Therefore, probably better to invest less money into a better player, potentially offensively at least, in Kuzmenko, and then move Horvat for some great assets, while his value is at its absolute sky-high peak, which, credit to Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford, that's exactly what they did, and they got back a delicious haul. Beauvillier, very good, and we can even still flip him if we want for more assets, but still, he's ultimately replacing that top six production, which not exactly the fact that we were able to ship out a top six player and still bring in that production, plus a pick which was then flipped for Filip Hronek, which we're going to get into, which I love, and Aturatu, or Atiratu, I don't know yet, still figuring that one out. But we have that trade. Number one reason for optimism. Sub in the Hronek trade. Great deal. I think the fact that we managed to flip that pick essentially gave us Filip Hronek, who is a legitimate top four defenseman, along with a top six winger and a top prospect. That's pretty good. That's not bad. I'm kind of into that. It's kind of hot, Patrick Allvin. You're kind of getting me hot and bothered with some of these moves right now. So, we have addressed our defensive issues. We have addressed more of our offensive issues. Where does that leave us? The coaching. So, Rick Tocchet, our bald-headed hero. That man, I really like what he has done. He is bringing accountability, and he's playing a way more, and that's the biggest thing that I think was missing under Bruce, was players need to know when they screw up, and they need to fix it, and play with just I love the intensity and the improvements to the forecheck and just the complete level. And he's focusing on just the little things like winning battles. Battles. They love that little word there. But seriously, when you start winning battles, you start there, and then that'll just spiral into helping every other facet, hopefully, of your team play. And we have seen enough improvement, I think. Now, of course, this could be another little tricky, deceptive coach's bump, of course, but the thing that gives me a little bit of encouragement is the fact that even in losing efforts, when the team isn't producing goals or isn't playing particularly well defensively, the work rate is there. And when you start with the work rate, everything eventually should follow. And that brings us to our final little point. And that is how in the off-season Patrick Allvin and company can stick the landing and actually make it so we don't just go through goddamn Groundhog Day again and deal with another really bad start where we come out underachieving yet again. Now, what they need to do this off-season is so simple. I mean, it's not so simple, but you know what? There's not a lot of confusion as to what they need to do. In my opinion, my humble opinion, we still need one more defenseman, one more top 4 legitimate defenseman, preferably 2. But if we can just get one, I'll take one. And I think we need a backup goaltender. I think Colin Deli has been serviceable, but if Demko gets hurt again, I don't think he's a guy that is. I don't trust him taking us a whole season as a number 1, or even a part of season as a number 1. I just think we need better depth in that position as well. Now, how are we going to do this, you ask? Well, I think it's going to take a little bit of a compromise. Essentially, what we need to do to improve our defense is sacrifice our offense. Whoa! But when you look at the plethora of good, especially wingers that we have, I think you can easily move 1, if not 2, depending on what you can get back, of Besser, Garland, Mikheyev, or Bavillier, and not hopefully, but actually bring back a solid top 4 defenseman. Now, you'll probably have to sweeten the deal. Probably another prospect in there, maybe another draft pick, because cap space is just horrible right now. But one of those players will garner you enough value, if you package them correctly, to fill that defensive hole at very little expense to the offense, because we're fine. We don't need any more help scoring goals. We're good in that regard. We can start to pivot to actually balancing the lineup. Okay, so anyways, yeah, I think that pretty much concludes this rant of a immensely frustrated Canuck fan that is sick and tired of the last, what has it been, decade of mediocrity. Yeah. But let me know what you think. Please respond in the comments or whatever the hell. I love dialogue with other Canuck fans. I love it when they tell me that I'm wrong, because most of the time I usually am. So please, let's have a lovely little discourse, and I'll probably be posting more videos like this as I think of topics of Canuck-related things to complain about. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed this, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your cat. I'll be back again probably, and I'd love it if your cat could watch. Anyways, thank you for viewing. Have yourself a fabulous time, and stay away from aggressive turkeys.